Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to another Masters of the Universe, the board game, the Clash for Eternia unboxing. So this video, we're going to go through all the additional Kickstarter stuff that came out, like accessories and things that are not necessary to play the game. They're just for increased value. So we'll go through each little different thing and talk about that different type of stuff we can get. The first thing I do want to show off is not actually even a Kickstarter exclusive. These are available from the CMON website. There are two alternate controller cards for He-Man and Skeletor. So you can go to the CMON website, find the product page, find Masters of the Universe. You scroll down, there's usually extra stuff, which they usually will occasionally add additional scenarios and stuff like they've done for all the zombie sides and other games. I don't know how many additional ones they'll do for this. Some of their games get one, maybe two bonus things. Something like Zombie Side get like one every couple of weeks or month or so. But yeah, this just adds an additional one you can print off. This is the current version that's on there, but there's talks about them reprinting them to make them more printer friendly, because right now it has like all the bleed border for the artwork. So they're talking about re-uploading these at some point, so maybe by the time this video is out, they'll have done that. So then you can just print, cut around the border, and use it. Yeah, so this He-Man gives you the Sword of Power. Sorry for it being blurry here. Trying to hold this. As I just took a picture off my other tablet. Off my tablet here, so you have Sword of Power says +3, but what he gains is gaining Inspiring Presence. Action, spawn 2 Eternian soldiers, or one Royal Guard in adjacent space. Bonus action, activate up to 2 minions within 4 spaces. Empowered, minions adjacent to He-Man roll 1 attack dice. So this is really cool, is because it gives you the ability to use the minions with another character. So otherwise I think Tila is the only other character that can really use minions. So that gives you another option there. And then the Skeletor one is the same idea. He has Life Siphon for 4. Each wound dealt to Skeletor and ally within 4 spaces heals 1. And has Get Them My Minions. Spawn up to 2 Hoverbots minions within 2 spaces. Activate all Hoverbot minions within 2 spaces. Or Empowered. Each time Hoverbot minions activate within 2 spaces, push them 1. So both of these just give your main 2 heroes and villains additional ways to play with the minions, which is really fun. I actually kind of hope they come out with other alternative characters and stuff. The next thing we got for Kickstarter exclusive content were the gold marble dice. So these are going to be identical in all other respects to the black dice that are from the base game. Just they're black and gold. These are gold and black. It's just kind of neat because that way, there's occasional times you might have to roll more than 6 dice, but this could let you have, either 3 players, each have their own set of dice. If you're playing 2 players as the player team, 1 player as a controller, or you could give 1 player the gold dice, 1 the black dice, or if you just like the gold dice, just use the gold dice. If I would realize that there was 12 dice in here and not 6, but I actually would have read the things, I probably would have ordered a second full set and had 1 for each. But there's an option if you want. Again, not ever required to play. Alright, then we're going to look at these sets. They're the 3D things, but we're going to look at the playmat first. But I just want to say, so we're going to have a 3D rock set, nature set, and ruins pack. These just replace the overlay tiles. And they look really cool, and they help with the aesthetic. And then the plastic Grayskull cast. So if you have the Assault on Grayskull mode, if you don't have it, you can still buy this and put it up, and then you have a Grayskull castle to play around, or set your minis on if you want to paint them. But it doesn't have any gameplay elements. It doesn't have the cards or the minions or any of the other stuff that come in the Assault on Grayskull box. It's just the castle. Just to point that out, castle and some of the accessories, which we'll look at in a minute. Alright, I'm going to pause for a sec, move these all the way so we can look at the playmat. Alright, so this is the neoprene playmat that you could have picked up again, I like doing these Kickstarter videos because this might be something you see later on. You're like, oh, do I need to have that? No, you don't need it. But maybe if you want to pick it up, it's kind of fun. Just it's going to work just like any other map. So your characters are all going to still sit on there just fine. It's the same size as the playboard. If you have your different tiles, they'll still fit in the correct hexes because it's all the exact same size. So nothing there changes. It's just the idea of you have a nice... the play matches are really nice quality here. Sticks really nice. Plus stuff sometimes picks up a little bit easier off of them. But it also then rolls up. So that could be a plus or minus depending on who you are. Because you'll have one map here that you could roll up, which takes up, this height of space at least. Although you could always put it back in the box. You have to store that as opposed to just putting up the fold up board in the box. But then the other couple upsides of this as well is, let me turn my camera without it falling off the stand, is on the side here. Nope, that's gonna fall. Alright, let's see if I can move over. That's a little bit better. So on the side of the playmat here, it's all one piece, is we have the tracker board. So this might be another thing to point out, though. Although now you're going to have one solid piece here, you don't have to have this fold-up board and the tracker board as two separate pieces that then you have to now keep track of as well. And then these will hold your cards the same. I don't have them in the right order, but you can see that the cards will fit on there just fine. Also being the neoprene, they probably pick up a little bit easier than maybe off the plastic board. So if I'm on the board... yeah, they probably pick up okay. But I'm also going to end up sleeving all my cards just to help picking up. They're not going to wear it. But the neoprene boards are always nice. You have your health tracker and your escalation on the side. So yeah, that's the other fun part of this neoprene mat. The last thing, to get all this back off of there. Move my camera back over. We can see... teaser for the Grayskull Castle there in the back. This is a double-sided board. So if I flip it over, I want to still have a tile on there. We still have our controller side, our activation side over here. Same spot. But it actually adds the Castle Grayskull template tiles from the Terrian and Castle Grayskull right onto the game board. So again, it doesn't have... this is just the playmat. It doesn't have any of the pieces or any of that other stuff. But it does have your full Castle Grayskull on here. So if you just bought the Castle Grayskull set, you can just flip this over and then you have that built in there. You don't have to then... put all the extra, carry all these big extra tiles, because they are quite a bit bigger. Because, like, this is your biggest regular tile, is the lake. And that's compared to the cliffs. So, it's a decent size bigger. I mean, it's not much. Like, it's 4 tiles bigger, I guess. A little bit less there, but that's your smallest tile there. Now you have to figure out how to put that and where to store all these, unless you're just going to keep everything in all the separate boxes. But as we see, we can lay this right there on top of that. It's the exact same size. Same thing with the cliff template. It's the same size. It doesn't matter. It just already has it built into the board. If you want to play that mode without having to keep popping this out. Artwork looks the same. You can see there's a little bit of a color difference in there. But that's just probably because of the fabric versus, regular stuff. So that is also a neat thing about the playmat. All right, actually, we're gonna leave that right there, and then we're gonna look at the Castle Grayskull, 3D Castle Grayskull. So we get this big giant stand here, and then we get the cliffs. Which, as long as I have it on that mode, we can basically line them all up. And then we get a Castle Grayskull that will attach to it. Yeah, so now we have a 3D Castle Grayskull. And again, you don't have to have this mode to play it, or this map to play it. I just left it on that side. But that is definitely a cool aspect of this game, because it adds so much more 3D element to it. So, like, if I have my heroes defending Castle Grayskull, where's He-Man? There's He-Man. You can see how cool they look being sitting on there. You got your cliffs down here that the characters can go on. What's also neat on here is because it has the height difference. Because there is in the book, it says these two spaces here cost so much to get onto, then so much to get on here, then so much to get on here. Well, now you can kind of see that as a thing. It's like, oh, okay, your character can, hop up on here, hop up on this terrain, then hop up on this one, as opposed to saying, hey, look, he's going to jump up to a height that's higher than what he is. And that also goes kind of with the same idea of the cliffs on the outside. I got my camera way over there. The cliffs on the outside, how much taller they are. So if you have to climb up on there, it takes a little bit more effort to get your characters up on top of that. And slide that out of the way for the moment. I'm going to bring the castle a little bit closer so we can look at some of the other details. It's not like, I know some people complain about the plastic, but it's not like super really high detail. It looks kind of like a toy bank is what someone said. It kind of does, but it's not meant to be a display piece necessarily. It's not meant to like super accentuate. It's just meant to be for a playboard. We do have the door that drops down. So if we have the cliffs in front of it, it drops down onto the cliffs. So now a guy can potentially go in. It is solid in there, so you can't get that. Now I have the door closed. This is the only thing I kind of had an issue with. Kind of hard to grab that. Like, I wish there was something to help you grab that, to pull that down a bit. But, then the other thing we're going to get are all of the 3D tokens. So we had the flag. So you get one of them, so you can put them up on the various spots up here on top of Castle Grayskull. So I'm actually going to turn this around so we can see it a little bit better. So I'm going to move straggles. We got the blaster turret guns. We got the battering ram, which has a boar's face on it. There is our turret gun, which does actually move up and down, which is really neat. Your weapons rack. And these look just like the different figures in the game. So we have like the shield, the laser pistol there, the laser rifle, the mace, tiny axe, halberd axe, polar arm axe, a spear. But these look just like they would in the toys. And then finally we have the little ladder, which the ladder, of course, is used to climb up the cliffs. So if we zoom down here now, Stratos needs to get up the cliffs because he can't fly for some reason. Well, now having to say he's jumping up there, here's a ladder he can climb. And then you could also kind of angle that like that. It doesn't go exactly, but it will go on there. But that's also the other neat part about this 3D model is, so on this ledge here, and where He-Man's standing here, that will spots in there for your characters to step into, so they can actually be standing on there, so they're not trying to hover on the edge. Kind of spin the castle around and see the other half. So there is these spots on the back that during the mode said you can't walk across, so they put extra terrain. It's just a reminder. And those are all of that. Let's see, can I grab the tokens? I probably have them buried in here. So, there's a comparison of your tokens on the board versus the 3D objects. So you can definitely see why that definitely makes... It's going to make the game feel more aesthetic. Just because now you have something for your characters to interact with, and move around. The only downside, kind of, is because they take up space on these spaces, is if your character also has to be in that space. There's not always the most room in there, because before they would have just stepped on the tile. But you can say He-Man can fit next to that. But, like, now Stratos trying to be next to this canyon, he's going to have to kind of sit at an angle, or you're going to have to, like, rework that canyon, or not canyon, the battering ram at an angle. But yeah, so they're not going to always fit 100% right with the character on there, because they weren't originally designed to fit a character, to have two things in one space ever. But that's a minor inconvenience, just to kind of have the lowest deck. Plus, you can easily look and tell where each of the things are on there. Then the last thing we'll look at for this is I'm just going to move all these guys off the base. This pops right off. It is hollow on the bottom. And then this base is hollow too. But yeah, otherwise it just kind of sets on there. It doesn't really snap in. Just kind of sits in those, just sits in the grooves down on here. So instead of actually snapping in. But like if you like force it, it's gonna fall off, but it's not gonna like just tip off instantly. But that's our Castle Grayskull. So we're gonna look at the 3D terrain next. So I'm gonna pause and we'll set those up. Alright, so the first of our terrain packs we're gonna look at is the 3D rock set. So in the set here, there is enough stuff. So I've laid out the rocks from the base game. The set, all the 3D sets should cover all. I checked the rocks. I'll double check the other ones when I do those parts. But all the rocks will cover the amount of rocks from the base game, but not the extra tiles from the box of power, the Kickstarter box. So in there, I have 5 more different rock variations, which are also double-sided to be forests. And some other stuff. So if I just want to use these tiles, if I bought the Kickstarter box, I have 5 more tiles I could lay out for rocks. But if you're only doing rocks, it's probably fine. But once you start adding some of the other elements in there, if you start adding like the lake or the ponds and other stuff, you might not want all those. But this is just showing what the characters look like surrounded by different rocks and different formations. But now, if we change the aesthetic up, to the 3D one, we'll see how much cooler they look. And boom, there we go. So that's them sitting around their 3D terrain. So again, it makes I think for a much cooler looking game to play. If I walked by and I just saw the tiles and all the colors on there, like these do have a little bit more detail on them. They look like different rocks. You can see the plants on the side. You can get some different shades. So there's definitely nothing wrong with that. They look neat in themselves. But here you actually feel the imposing of these are rocks that they're standing on. So you can see how much taller they're going to be than the characters. Again, when you're saying, I have to pay 2 movement to get up on top of these. Now it makes a little bit more sense, doesn't it? I'm going to see if I have the terrain card sitting right here. I do, I bet. Yeah, so like we have rocks here. It says, blocks line of sight between models not on the same rock terrain. +1 roll for attack when the guys attack outside of the terrain and not on the rocks. And terrain penalty must pay 2 spaces. So now this aesthetically just makes more sense. So He-Man right now, he should be able to see anyone else up on his range. But it's kind of saying he can't see anyone else over there. Let me grab a bad guy. So at least it looks like he's attacking someone. So this is saying Hoverbot can now attack, or He-Man gets extra points for attacking down. He has the higher ground, Anakin. Yes, I made that joke. Yeah, so it says, get +1 attack while attacking enemies outside this terrain. They're not on other rocks. So if he was over on this rock, they're technically still adjacent. But if he's over there, he loses it. It's also the same idea as you can gain 1 from having an advantage from one height to the other. And then, like, for line of sight, if Hoverbot was using a ranged attack, he can't shoot through the rocks to hit Man-at-Arms over there. That's not Man-at-Arms, that's an Eternian soldier. He can't shoot to hit the Eternian soldier, so that's where it blocks the line of sight. So it visually makes more sense than a guy standing here and being like, wait, why can't I shoot through this tile that I can see? Or why does it cost me more to move up on there than it does any other space? So again, is it necessary for the game? Definitely not. Would they look a lot more cool if someone painted them like different shades of purple, added shading in there? Definitely would. The other thing that's neat is they don't all, I mean, like, they look basically the same. They're just repeated, so that's not a big deal, but each terrain looks a little different. Some of these have grass on them, in the marks in them. The only other thing that's kind of, odd about them is because they have the gap in there where they're edged on the side. Whereas if I put two tiles next to each other, they pretty much fit right together. So they look more like one solid rock formation versus this having a gap. But again, that's very minor. Plus, they're a lot easier to pick. Well, they're a lot easier to pick up because they're more physical space, but they are kind of slippery. Alright, so we're going to pause again, and then we will look into the next terrain set. Alright, so our next terrain set is the nature set, which is going to give us our forests and lakes. So we're going to do the same as we did before. You can see we have a Beastman and his big shadow beast over there, with hiding in the forest over there. Well, Man-at-Arms and his Eternian, or his royal soldiers, are struggling to find their way through the dense forest. But you can see you can make different patterns. You could clump them all together, make one big forest. And we have the lake back there. And then much like the other rock set, they're going to have the same number to count 3D tiles to count for everyone in the base game, but again, not for the box of power extra. Of course, one big difference to point out here, you can see how very varied the different terrains are, the different plants, how beautiful they look. Like we have some reds, there's glares, you can't really see that one. But we have the reds and the yellows and the different purples. So you could always use that as some aesthetic as well. Plus the other set you got, some of these might be the alt art ones as well. But you get different colors and stuff, which make them look a little bit more vibrant like forests. But we're going to do magical transition and see what the 3D set looks like. And voila, there's our 3D terrain. So now you can see a couple of clear differences in there. Is one, they're obviously a lot brighter. Big bright greens, kind of like the rocks, or the big purples, the bright blue lake. But they lose all their art texture. So I guess that's one thing you have to decide, is do you want the extra cool looking artwork on there, or if you're more focused on the gameplay, this does add some good extra thing, because again, you can tell it's easily separate terrain because you can see it's green versus the other colors. The lake is blue, you can't enter the lake, so it's easy to know, oh crap, I moved on to that tile because I couldn't tell immediately looking at it was something different. I mean, it should be fairly obvious because it doesn't look like a forest or a rock, or a ruin. But it's also kind of weird because they have hex tiles in there. And per the rules, the lake cannot be entered. So the only reason I can justify them having the hex tiles is for line of sight reasons. So that's the only thing you kind of lose off of there, is because now, if example, you were trying to shoot through here, you'd have to try and kind of, I mean, you can sort of guess it easily, but you'd have to try and figure out versus just straight up having the hex tiles, and be like, oh, it's 3 tiles over. So if you're trying to shoot a range across the lake or something, that's the only downside there. And then forests, of course, let's look at their ability. So as well, inside this terrain, gain +1 defense against attacks from outside this terrain. In terrain penalty, models must pay 1 space of movement to enter or leave this terrain. So, like, as a comparison, the rocks were 2. They were a lot higher terrain to stand on. So you can kind of get this. Oh, it takes me one normal space. It takes me 2 spaces to get here. It takes me a third one to get up on top of the rocks. They're a little bit higher. Gives you, again, that thing. And I will do a comparison at the end after I go through the next set. of all the different terrain together, just to take a look at that. The other thing that's neat about this is there's all the trees in here. Now, some of these have extra holes in there, so there's, I think, 3 total holes you can't fill. Yeah, or 2 holes. One there, one there. So only 2 holes you're not going to have any trees for, but they're completely modular. They pop out really easy. You can put this, oh, you can't even see this one. I have another train all the way over here. You couldn't even see. Yeah, you can pop these bushes out, put them over there. Pop this one out, put it on there if you want. So they're very easy to move around. They come disassembled. These just pop right off. Well, I guess be careful when you're popping them off so you don't break them. They have an extra... I don't know, it's going to zoom in on it low enough. Well, I did it. There's a little tip on there. So you can kind of mix and match these if you wanted to as well. Because you have, like, the leafy trees, and then you have, like, well, I guess they're all leafy trees. You have, like, kind of the fronds, and then you have the other type. But, like, I put the bigger one on first. There's nothing stopping me from putting on the small. Just watching you poke, though, you can stab yourself. Like, you could do it the other direction and have small ones on the bottom of the top. Or you could have half and half. Oop, just trying not to break these, Like I said, be easy on them, but, you don't want to risk wrecking them. Yep, so you could, like, mix those two together if you want. So there's nothing that says you can't mix and match these. And then on the bottom, they kind of have little gaps in there, too. So when you are putting them in there, they're going to fit in there just fine, and they pop out really easily. So the last thing I do want to kind of show off with these guys is, with this particular terrain, is if you have a double-mounted figure, like He-Man here on Battle Cat. So he will sit on there. He'll kind of rock between these vines that go in between that separate the tiles. Just so you know there's a different tile. He's going to have a little bit more difficulty, like if you have multiple trees in there. Like, you can get in here, but if I have... these 2 big trees right here, I obviously can't... I can kind of fit them in there. I can kind of fit them on the outside a little bit. Like, maybe I have to reverse him so his sword's sticking out. But I obviously, there's no way I'm going to get them in here. But that's part of the reason why they pop out. Because they don't do any gameplay value. So, I'm trying to put He-Man in this one particular direction. It's the only way I have to have him. I'll just have to probably pop out at least one of the trees, to put He-Man there. And I gotta just plant it somewhere else. But that's definitely a fun little extra thing as well. This could be something I could see if they ever release, like, if they ever, like, remade these or add these, like, another thing. Like, I'd hope they would add different colored trees. It'd be cool to have some, like, of the purples or reds plants, just to, like, mix and match with other things. Alright, so we are going to then hop into our third and final terrain set. Alright, then the last of the 3D sets are the ruins, of course. So these are probably the most impressive of the 3 sets. So we'll get to those sets. But now you can see I kind of laid out the board here with the ones from the game. So clearly you can tell these apart from, rocks or from forest. I mean, they're different colors. You can tell them apart. But yeah, they're definitely neat. So basically, you can't enter these unless you're on, unless you come through one of the sides here that has these little red flags on them. So this one can only be entered from those 2 sides. And that's why I have these all connected rather than just having like a random side of ruins you have to go through. I made like a little tunnel, which I thought was kind of neat. But it's like, yes, you can enter, come through here, exit out that side, come down this way. This one leads to a dead end. Or you can exit out this way. But it kind of makes for an interesting thing. Here we have this scenario. We have Skeletor, who decided to drag Panther into a ruined cave with Evil Ling with Tila coming up from behind. Ram Man lost over here on a dead end, and Orko, of course, stuck outside because he doesn't know what to do, so he can't enter in. But then, the rule card for it says can only be entered exit through the entrance spaces, which they show on here light. You can kind of see the light. It's not as bright as it on some of them as it maybe could be. Line of sight cannot be traced into or out of except through the entrance spots. So, currently, Tila could see Skeletor, or vice versa, but none of the other characters can see each other because of how they are. So, yeah, this looks pretty good, but let's just magical wipe and see the 3D stuff. And voila. Now, doesn't that look so much more impressive than these flat tiles? Again, like all the other terrain, you're losing some of that, picture inside of the little stones and, the walls and stuff. But these are still actually detailed on the side enough that it's not that big of a deal. There's, intricate designs inside. There's, tiles and stuff. But now you can definitely see the scope. This looks like you're in some sort of cave or in some sort of building of thing. It does make it look more like a ruin versus me trying to say, oh, maybe it's a cave. But that's still, aesthetic-wise. But now you can see, Man-at-Arms here, or not Man-at-Arms, Ram Man feels a little bit more lost. Orko obviously can't see inside because of the walls. But yeah, it makes it feel more impressive. The other thing is, so here's the one that I thought they'd fix this, but it doesn't look like they really did, to try and make it so that the dual mounted characters could fit between these two tiles. So they really can't very well. They said they fixed it, but obviously it doesn't look like they did, because I can't even get them. Even if I pull one away and I try and have one in and one out, he doesn't really sit in there between them. So, I mean, that's something you could, if you wanted to try and decide to, cut down the bases a little bit or do something like that, shave off a bit to try and make your characters fit. I wouldn't worry about it too much, being the fact that there is only, 5 mounted characters. Skeletor on Panther, He-Man on Battlecat, She-Ra on Swiftwing, Hordak on Mantisaur, and then Fisto and Strider. So there's 5 characters, and then aside from Fisto, who you can actually play as a player character, all the rest can be played as controller characters. So it does affect if the controller wants to use them, or if you're playing the other character, you hit their last level. It does affect it there a little bit. But I think for the overall thing, for how often you're probably going to use the terrain versus how often you might use that versus the number of characters, isn't going to happen that much. Unless you only had the base game in this, where you'll probably end up using He-Man and Skeletor a lot more. Or if you only bought one of the expansions with She-Ra or Hordak, and that's all you had is 1 or 2 of them, then you might. But if you got all the Kickstarter stuff, which is probably the reason why you would buy this, you have so many characters with everything that the 5 are probably going to be, a little bit, aren't going to be as big of a deal. You get characters like this, they'll be a little bit taller. Of course, they can see over, reach, but that doesn't change anything. But these are definitely impressive. There were no extra ruin tiles in the Box of Power, so you don't have to worry about that being a match there. Alright, so we're going to do one more pause. I'm going to kind of set up all the different 3D terrain together so we can see how it looks mixed in with each other. So one moment. Alright, so here I've set up the board. This is not exactly a scenario, but it's just maybe overabundance, custom scenario. But you can see we have a ton of figures on there, more than what we probably ever have in a regular game. But we have rocks over here. You can see different colors. We have a forest leading through the middle. We have some ruins on the outside, which currently only have one entrance, actually, because that one goes off the board. That one goes off the board. So there's one blocked by a boulder there. We have some boulders, some killer plants. Over on this side, we have some more forest with some rocks surrounding it. We have some objective tokens. We have one there. We have one over by Skeletor. We have some NPC tokens on there. We have water tokens. So the only thing I noticed right off the bat that's weird is I have the lake. So this is one thing I wanted to point out. I was setting all this up like this with the regular terrain. Even with the extra tiles from the scenario, or from the box of power set, I had to redo this to add the 3D terrain because I didn't have enough of the same type. Because so many of these are double-sided, if I wanted an extra set of rocks here, I had to give up a forest. And this happened with the straight pieces, which we have. Let me see where the other one is. I have like one over here though. But yeah, because some are forests on one, some of these are rocks on one side, forests on the other. But then some of the bigger pieces, like this, is a ruin on this side, and on this side it's forest. So if I want this forest, I can no longer have this ruin. And that's what happened with the lake, because the lake is either you have the big ruin, or you have the lake. You have one option or the other. You don't get both. If you're just using the tiles, since the 3D set has one set for every single one, it counters that double one. The only thing is you don't get the extra few tiles, but in the end, I ended up with 2 extra, right now, not including what I have on the table, I have 4 extra ruins, 2 extra rocks, and 2 extra plants. So I could definitely add even more to this and fill this board up even more. But yeah, so this is what it looks like if it's kind of all set up. I don't think most scenarios are this crowded. So it might not be that big of an issue ever, but that's just something to note. So yeah, if we look at some of the scenarios in here, you can see some of them have a decent amount of stuff, but there's usually a decent gap. They don't have a lot of stuff where everything's together. It's more like, here's a space to walk between these, space to walk between them. Like that one surrounds them. But yeah, I don't think I have any. There are as much stuff as I maybe have out on here. You can get some fun designs too. Definitely interesting stuff. But yeah, so if you can create any of these, you can definitely create them with the other set. Like they had that one that had all rocks. That's going to be all my rocks. Like if I want to like customize that scenario, I probably wouldn't be able to add any of the ruins or the forest, or maybe only 1 or 2 if I wanted to change like 1 or 2 little things or add something to the other corner. You wouldn't have a lot of extra options. So that's just what I kind of want to point out. But now we see how this looks with this terrain. You can definitely see you have the colors, the rocks. You can obviously tell them different than the tiles. At a glance, you can see that there are different shades of different stuff. But let's see how it looks like with the 3D stuff. So we'll do our magical wipe again. And voila, that's what it looks like with all the 3 different, well, including the lake, the 4 different types of terrains. Now you can see, although again, they're not maybe as picture colored because they don't have all the different artwork on them. They're, for matching or just minions to make stuff easier, you can easily tell what terrain's what. You can see the height differences between like the forest and the, rocks very easily. Plus even like the ruins, you can immediately tell like where the entrances and exits are without having to like lean over the table and try and figure it out. So you can easily see, oh, I can't get to them, they're off the board, so I'm gonna have to come through this side over here. You can easily tell. I should probably move my camera so you can see what the heck I'm talking about. But yeah, you can easily see like over here, this is clearly a dead end on this corner, so you don't have to again, oh, is that the one where I can get through? Oh, it doesn't matter because the exit would probably be on that side anyhow. But yeah, you can see all that stuff. Like down over here, we have, different guys in different terrain. You also see how the tokens then compare to the terrain. Now they don't mix in with the terrain as often. So now I can easily see where the boulders are, where the killer plants are, the water tokens are, the NPC tokens stand out a little bit more because they have the orange border. And the same thing with like the objective tokens because they have the gold border. And like a different type of picture, but they still kind of blended in a little bit. But now you can definitely see the differences in all this different stuff. So I have a couple more things to show up. One thing I know that will definitely always come up with this stuff is people will say, well, could I put these tokens on top of the terrain so I still get the height thing, but I get the picture? So I'm going to zoom over onto these spots here. If I can. Got my camera in a weird spot. So if I put this on top, will it work? Yes. There's no reason why I couldn't put that on there. Just the only thing is it's not going to necessarily stick. It's kind of slippery. So you just have to watch. Or if you're pulling a guy from maybe on the bottom, or moving him over, you just have to worry about like, oh crap, it spun around. Or, but even saying that, like just right there, I was trying to move that. I shuffle this terrain. Like you bump into this too hard trying to drop a guy on, you could easily shift all the terrain. So that's not going to be any different than that reason. But you could put these on top if you wanted to make different pictures on there instead. But you wanted to have that height for the rocks, or if I did like my plant, I could set them on there. The forests aren't going to work as great just because they have the board, they have like the stuff sitting in them. But you could definitely do that if you wanted to. And now, even still right there, I can tell the rock is higher. I can tell the forest is a little bit higher. So I can tell my forest apart from my tokens. I can tell my rock terrain apart from my forest. And I still get the pretty pictures. So it is a possibility to do that. I was going to say, where is my lake? So I could even do that with the lake. I could put the lake, scooch over this. I could put the lake on top of the lake if I wanted it for the hex tiles. Although I think that actually considerably looks worse. The lake looks neat with the pond and stuff in there. But I don't think it sits on there well enough to make it worth it. But if you're going to do all the rest like that, you should probably do that as well. I have also seen people who just took foam blocks and put them underneath their things, and then they could set these on top of foam blocks. They might stick to a foam block a little bit more. I was trying to see if I had one just sitting in reach, and I do not, of course. I have 50,000, but never when I need one. But the only problem there is you wouldn't want to like attach it or glue it to it because you want to be able to use the other side if you're only using the one type of terrain. The last thing in there would be, what about the ruins? Can I reuse the ruins that way? I'm going to definitely probably say no. Because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to try and put this. It's not going to sit inside there. So if I wanted to do the ruins that way, I mean, again, you could, because it still gives you that. Ooh, I got to keep remembering to move my camera. Sorry, guys. So if I put it up on top of the ruins there, it still gives me the idea of, oh, it's a bigger thing, it's a bigger object, but it kind of defeats the whole entire purpose of the exits being low, like kind of angled down so you can see them, the walls. I could still put He-Man, Orko back in there, but at that point you may as well just almost either use the tile or use that. The other two, I could argue the forest and the rocks, just because that way you get the pictures as well. But I also think, though, if you're playing, having less imagery on there, which is kind of why the ground is all just tan, is almost sort of nicer. Okay, so we're going to do one more quick transition and show off one other aspect of the 3D stuff. Alright, so if you can't tell what little changes we made to this is we added the 3D components from the Box of Power or the Kickstarter stretch goals. So we added the big giant plants in here. We have a couple different models of those. So again, they make them look a lot more impressive sitting on the board than just one of these little double-sided tokens. So that way you can easily see, hey, that's a threat. The same idea like the boulders we have back here, or the one blocking the door. It's easier to tell, like this is like, yes, with this 3D terrain, I can tell it's blocking the door, but with this, I can physically see it a lot easier. Plus that, like, so even if you didn't have the 3D terrain, that's just from the Box of Power, that stuff still works out really great. Then if we come over this way, we got Queen Marlene down here as a 3D miniature, as well as inside the ruins where He-Man and Orko are trying to get to. We have King Randor and the objective token. So again, like, especially the 3D ruins, having the 3D models is really nice because you can see them easier from a distance versus having to constantly peer over depending on how far on the table you are sitting. And then if we flip to the other side, we have the other objective token over here by Skeletor. So yeah, I just added those. Now, I did leave like the water tokens. I didn't make any special tokens for that because those are summoning tokens. And that's going to be the same thing for all the rest. So let's just move him out of the way. So if we have like the mist, the ice wall, the moss, the webs, the I forgot what those things are. The poison of some sort. Poison. It's the opposite of the sweep. It was poison. Same guy. The toxic clouds, or if you have the two different barricades, the shadow cage, or if you have the force from Grayskull. So those are all kind of how they sit on there. But since these are all things that are meant to be not sit on the board and sort of stay there, I mean, outside of someone summoning plants or summoning boulders or moving them, for the most part, all this terrain is going to stay where it's at, where these tokens are meant to move. It would be cool if gotten like different 3D versions of them, but I get why they didn't, because some of them are only used by one character. Only one character uses. Weber uses this. I forgot who he was. He uses this. Mossman, Frostia, Stinkor. So, and then the water tokens are Merman and Mermaidia. Other than that, it's like Castle Grayskull, Shadow Weaver. That's it. You have one character using each one, so where the rest of these are going to be used a lot or by a bunch of characters or a bunch of scenarios, the tokens aren't. So it's probably why they didn't make it with the tokens. So I'm going to do one more quick setup. I know I said I was done, but I lied. I'm going to do one more quick setup to show what it kind of looks, some of the stuff looks like mixed in with Castle Grayskull. Alright, and I did the same thing here as I did kind of the last time. I went overkill on the terrain. I don't think usually the scenarios for this are this intensive, but I thought it's a good way to show up all the different components if you had the Castle of Grayskull or added the 3D elements to it. If you didn't, it would just be a basic, Castle Grayskull. But this is what can definitely make the game really cool. So, of course, we have our cliff steps, so you can see the different heights there. You can see how they're a little bit shorter, about the same height here as the rocks on this thing, because there's a penalty for climbing up them as well. But we use lots of the different game elements to create our own scenario. We put a ruin over here, which is where the bad guys are starting. Which, of course, they have a tunnel in there. And then you can kind of see they have a tunnel over there, so these guys can now, later in the game, tunnel right from their spawn point over into the other side of the rock, so they don't have to keep going around it. Before they were going up and down, because clearly no one wanted to move these rocks. Evil Wing over here has her cage on her, which is protecting her from any ranged attacks. We got the ladder set up. We got a deadly plant back there. If we flip kind of up to the top, sorry for all the giant mess in the back, you can see the figures with their miniatures. Again, like, you can kind of slide in there. Now, you have the issue with the guys trying to share spots with the 3D obstacles instead of just the tokens, where they're going to kind of have to sit wonky on there. I mean, like, Tila does sit fine in there with that one, but there's not a lot of extra room up on top there. But that might not be where that cannon goes. That might be the flag or something else. I didn't put them where they're supposed to go in the game. I just set them in there. We have Ram Man and a guard guarding that objective down there. We also put 2 water tokens on this side. So if you want to get through the one side, you'd have to move the boulders with a throw attack, go over the cliffs or go over the rocks. This other side, you're going to have to go over the cliff, go through water, or you're going to have to go through the forest. So there's kind of different ways to get around. Then we add some plants. There's the lake. Another objective token. And look, way in the back there's Merman, and he's on a water token. So he's using these ones up front here, down here, to teleport back over there. So now he's going to try and sneak up. He's going to try and sneak up the backside of the castle or go to that objective where nobody's watching. Now, of course, unless you started a water token back there, nobody would have a way. But you might assume maybe he ran through the forest, went all the way around, or someone teleported him, or how, I don't know. It's just a setup. It's not trying to figure out exact gameplay. But that's how crazy epic this can all look with all this 3D terrain. So if you're interested in it, it's probably definitely worth picking up. It's going to, I think, add a lot of aesthetic to the game. Instead of just moving them all around on these flat tiles, I actually feel like you're going up and down things. You're shooting around different obstacles and all that cool stuff. Grayskull Castle being 3D, hit or miss. You want it because you want to make everything look really epic and awesome and great. For the maybe few modes you might play with it, it's probably a pass. I like it, but I'm a huge collector for stuff like this. But yeah, for just gameplay reasons, because you're not going to use it in every scenario like you would use the other terrain, it is something I think you could skip. The one caveat I would maybe say to that, so I said just kind of in the Grayskull in the video for it, is if you were playing an alternate mode where you somehow figure out how to utilize the different equipment, the 3D equipment with other modes and not just the Castle Grayskull mode, then you could definitely, it's a neat thing to pick up, because of course, I mean, this just have the 3D components. Because again, if you pick up a Celtic Grayskull, you can still play all the mode and everything. You just have to use the flat tiles. But if you want to go with 3D things, you like maybe have to take around and be like, oh, your character can play this and set this up somewhere else. Then that might be a fun little extra thing to have. The other thing might be the cliff, because the rules of the cliff, having to spend extra points to get up. You could use that as another block to get around stuff, as another extra piece of terrain. But again, that's very minimal, because that'd only be for custom games, not for any scenarios. If I had to recommend out of the 3 other terrain sets, the ruins, the rocks, or the forests, which one would I recommend you getting? I would probably say if you're only going to get one, get the ruins. They definitely stand out the most, and I think they have the most impact on the looking of the game, because the rocks are kind of purple and the trees are kind of, these are sort of brown, they kind of look blah, but this really helps it stand out. But I would hugely say getting both of them would definitely help the plants and the rocks, because then you don't have the double tiles. So if you're going to play a lot of your own scenarios, it gives you more tiles. I mean, yes, the Box of Power has an additional 4 tiles, but that's either 4 more rocks, 4 more plants, or 2 of each. But this will give you the option to play all of these at the same time instead of only half at one time, half at the other. So there's a lot more replayability in here, I believe. Alright, that's what I got for this. Hope you guys check out the rest of the unboxing videos. If there's anything else you'd like to see or know about the game, let me know, and I will definitely try and check it out for you. See you guys later. Bye.